This is episode 232 of Super League Pod. You'll get a brief threesome, hear who is the fastest man with Freckles, and find out how quickly Alan can polish off a book. Hear us recap the highs and lows of the Cup day out at Horwich, the ups and downs of a busy week for the RFL, and some big deals for the Super League. It's marquee players on a marquee episode. Suit up in your new GB gear and get strapped in. It's SLP time. Hello listeners, episode 232 of the Super League Pod, as you just heard in the intro, and you've got myself, Mark, a Wigan fan, and Alan, the Bradford fan. We'll be joined later on by Leigh Whitnell, the Wire fan, to talk about the Challenge Cup semi-finals and women's final as well, although he didn't have... Spoiler alert, I don't think he's got much to add on that part, but he'll definitely have a lot to say about the two semi-finals. But before we get to all of that, Alan, do you want to tell the listeners who this episode is sponsored by?
Yep, so episode 232 is sponsored by Little Warden. If you have a website, then visit littlewarden.com and see what they can do to help you. They can help you with domain expiration checks, redirects, and all sorts of other important background web stuff that they'll make simple for you. Vital alerts for hidden issues.
There you go, yeah. So, bit of an update for everyone. I'm still in the echoey dining room whilst the podcast room is being decorated. It's coming on apace, so hopefully I'll have some nice shots of a new room dedicated exclusively, well, pretty much exclusively. I can't see why else we'd need an office to recording episodes of Super League Pod. Alan, how have you been? As is tradition, you're on after a Challenge Cup round. We're going to see that through to the final, but how are things for you?
Yeah, quite good. Obviously, we're going to talk about Saturday. Yeah, I was very busy, obviously, on Saturday over in, I was going to say sunny Bolton, but let's not lie to each other.
No. Soaked wet through Bolton, yeah.
Soaking Bolton.
Did you see that we were on the screen for quite some time?
Yes, I did.
Which was totally unintentional. We didn't know that if you put something on Instagram with the hashtag Challenge Cup, you would be put on the screen. But I think after that, other people sent some in, so they managed to knock us off the rotation. But for the first 2 hours of the day, we were on the screen quite a lot.
Yes, we were. And I don't think I'd have pulled that face if I'd known that. But what are you gonna do? It
was good advertisement for our friends Masco Browns, though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
me
it
with
was
my
actually,
USA hat, and you with your Toa Samoa hoodie.
Get your Samoa hoodies. Get them now the weather's turned.
Exactly. Yeah. So on this week's show, we've got some news that includes some big signings from the NRL, really. Probably signings that, if we weren't busy with other stuff, would have deserved delving into an SLP short. We might need to think about something about comparing some of these signings that are coming up for next year, because it's pretty good going by the clubs. And we're going to recap the full day at the Challenge Cup action at Bolton, like we said, and go through other results as well, including an NRL debut in the Britwatch section and the 1895 Cup results. There's a quiz to finish the show, and that's related to the 1895 finalists. So we'll see how we get on with
Look forward to that one then.
Yeah. Before we go into the news, we're going to do a couple of shout-outs first. We'll be having a pair of Challenge Cup final tickets that we're going to give away, courtesy of our friend Tom Andrews. Keep an eye on our social media pages this week for details, really. I think we're going to do the giveaway through Facebook this time, so get following our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Super League Pod. I'll try and remember to put some links to our Facebook page on Twitter feed as well if people want to jump across to it from there. But if you fancy winning yourself a pair of Challenge Cup final tickets, we'll be running a giveaway through our Facebook page over the next week or so. So do get over there. We'll try and make it quite simple, but we want to try and get some more traffic to the Facebook page, so do go checking that out. Also, I've got to remind you all, check your emails and fill in the follow-up surveys. to be honest, because I was so busy with the Challenge Cup games and all of that, I didn't get round to checking how progress is going on the responses on those. But I know we've certainly not had as many responses as we had emails sent out. So please do check your inboxes and your spam filters. Thanks to all those that have filled them in so far. And like I said last week, if you haven't had an email from us because you didn't give us your email address, get in touch and I'll arrange for sort of a second list to go out to people. So do send us an email, superleaguepod@gmail.com, and then we've got your email address. We can send you all the links to do the follow-up surveys and also a copy of the report from our findings, because I'm sure everyone's interested to read those. I sort of feel in a small way that we could make a difference, if not in a big way, because you look at things like Robert Elston seems to be listening to the fans about Magic Weekend, reportedly not going to be back at Anfield, and the survey was completed just before Magic Weekend, but there was a lot of people on there, not a significant amount in the overall scheme of things, but there was a lot of people who made specific comments in their responses to why they'd scored Super League, what they'd scored, or what changes they'd make, that mentioned Anfield is an example of them not really listening to the fans.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is an example of them starting to listen to the fans, and everything we can do as a fan-based podcast that can help put together our thoughts as the Rugby League fan base and share them in a constructive and positive way, then I think all the better, because it's no use just being happy clapper about the sport that we all love. We've got to try and make the people that like it love it, the people that don't know about it like it, and just progress all them up the chain, and eventually have everyone loving it as much as you, Alan, me, and the people that listen to this podcast love the game already.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This podcast is for you, and it's about getting your views out there. It's not a podcast that argues with its mates, or its former mates. It's a podcast that wants to talk about the game and represent you. So get your views in.
Yeah, and talking of getting the views in, we're going to have a Tom Andrews session now as we move on to, and who deserves it more after he's given away his 2 Challenge Cup final tickets.
Absolutely selfless.
So we'll get now on to the news from around the world of Rugby League.
So onto a busy week in news, and particularly around signings. So firstly, Wigan Warriors have signed England forward George Burgess from South Sydney Rabbitohs on a 3-year deal from next year. Burgess, who up until now played alongside Tom and Sam at South Sydney, has been with the club, hang on a minute, for 10 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
Jesus, it is.
Well, he's 27, isn't he? So if you think about it, he left before he played any games of Super League for the Bulls. So
he did. Yeah. Blimey, yeah. God, that's a quick 10 years.
Yeah, makes you feel old, doesn't it?
Oh God, one of the many things.
Tom Andrews got in touch. He said, "Another big signing for Wigan. Hope you have sorted those admin staff out." Yeah,
make sure their flights are covered.
I hope so too. I hope they've got all of their costs in the right boxes on their salary cap returns. And
indeed.
Well, if he earns marquee status, then everything we pay him over 175,000 is on the cap for 150. So it doesn't really matter. We can send him on as many flights as we want.
Do we reckon he is?
I would imagine.
Is that what the rumour mill tells you?
I would imagine the player I think all of these players that are coming over from the NRL as big names who are, internationals or state of origin players, I think they're all coming over taking marquee slots. I would be surprised if they're earning less than 175,000. Now, to me, first of all, I think it's a fantastic signing for Wigan. He's the type of forward that Wigan haven't really had. He's a forward that dominates with the ball, not so much without the ball. And, under the Sean Wayne era, it was all about forwards who could defend. And to me, Wigan have lacked a a middle unit forward who could physically impose himself on the opposition. And I think as long as he physically imposes himself with his fingers within the, outside of people's eye sockets, then, and doesn't physically impose himself by throwing any street signs, throwing any cars, that seems to be a long time in his past now, thankfully, then he's a fantastic signing, isn't he? And he's a bona fide superstar. He's a recognisable figure at games. When you saw him during the last World Cup, when he didn't make the squad after he'd been out sort of injured for a while, hadn't he? In the stands, when you saw him, he was being mobbed by people all the time. Yet he seemed to always be there and enjoying the crack and that sort of stuff. I think it's right up there alongside Warrington signing Gareth Widdop as well for next season, bringing him back from the NRL, someone who's never played a game in Super League. We're talking about so many players leaving the sport and leaving Wigan to go and play in the NRL, leaving the Super League competition. And this just is a huge boost in the other direction, bringing a genuine top caliber player into our competition. So whether he's earning the marquee status or not, I'm not really fussed, because I think the headline of him coming to the competition is big enough to warrant that. Although I would treat the marquee situation more as a salary cap exemption rather than as a which player deserves to get it. So, for example, if it makes more sense on the salary cap, say you're paying both George Burgess and Oliver Gildart £175,000. Now that's just a say you are sort of thing.
Yeah.
You have to be paying them a minimum of 175,000 for them to be able to be a marquee player. But I know we're not paying Oliver Gildart £175,000 a year, but say we were, okay.
Yeah.
He'd be the marquee player, wouldn't he? Because he'd only cost 75,000 on the cap, whereas George Burgess had cost 150,000 on the cap. So it makes sense to get more cap space by making your marquee player the homegrown player. Just as for example. However, what do you think of it? Do you think it's a big deal, or am I getting too carried away?
You're always entitled to get a bit carried away. Do I think it's a big deal? I don't think it's as big as some of the other signings that have come around this week. But it's probably. I don't think it's a. I think it's a player that it addresses a gap for Wigan. Number one, it's as you said, it's a player that I think it's something that Wigan have struggled with in terms of their dominance in the middle. So he's a good player in that sense, and he's a good fit.
He's a good age.
I think he's. Yeah,
he's experienced, but he's not over the hill. Cause
he's definitely not over. He's definitely not over the hill.
No, I mean 30s, which is or in their very much the early stage of their career. So I think he addresses that gap too very neatly. Yeah,
no, he's a good signing, and I think he. But yeah, he's maybe it's just because he's coming back. I don't know that maybe you don't quite get as excited.
But he's not coming back, is he? He's never played in Super League. He's got a point to prove because he's never played in Super League.
Okay, well, it feels like he's coming back to me because I remember watching him playing in the academy and dropping in the ball every 2 minutes. So to me, it feels like he's coming back. And whenever I think of the Burgeye, I always think of the guy who I used to sit near. He used to just absolutely berate them, whatever they did. So for me, it feels like he's coming back. But I think that's a Bradford specific thing. But yeah, you're right in terms of he hasn't made his mark in Super League. So yeah, I'm sure he'll do a great job for Wigan.
I hope so. It'll be weird when a player returns to Australia for homesickness who was born in Dewsbury, though, isn't it? That's going to be weird.
Indeed.
Okay, Wigan Warriors have also made another splash signing with signing the versatile Parramatta Eels back Bevan French until the end of the 2021 season. The 23-year-old Australian is due to arrive in England on Wednesday after the NRL side agreed to release him from his contract early. So French has made his Parramatta debut back in 2016. He's since played 47 games for them, scoring 35 tries. Tom Andrews got in touch on this one as well. He said, Australian French signs for English team with PNG coach. The expansionists will love that. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting one. He's been. I don't recall seeing him play for Parramatta this year.
No. He
made
a real splash when he first came into the side, scoring at a try a game, weren't he? Then he had a longer run in the side, and